Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Jason. We are going to be showing, I guess there's just me right now. My dog is here, so I guess we is accurate. Are going to be showing you the solve for the CSS challenge from day 12. That challenge was a simple one, which required changing of the background color on the navigation, depending on whether the user was logged in or not. And then also applying basic styles like font family change to the H and the P tags. All the H's and the P tags. Before we do that, though, we need to do just a little bit of house cleaning. Number one, you'll notice that right now I have the functions.php page open. Now, up until now, we've been using function-new.php because we did have a functions.php file from before when we were first doing some PHP stuff, and then we kind of abandoned that and started a new one. Then at some point we deleted that functions or function.php file. If you still have that file and it's not the one that you're using for the new PHP stuff that we're doing, go ahead and delete it. If you have named your file functions, then awesome. Go ahead and keep it. And as long as it has the functions that make nav, make content, and make title, then we're good to go. Go ahead and keep that and sit back for this next part. So all we need to do is just rename function new to functions.php. So my code editor, I just right clicked on the file and chose rename. You can do it in terminal if you want to with the mv command. But at any rate, if you have the old functions.php, just delete it. And along with that, you can delete the contact and about us or about.php files as well. There's a couple other ones. And if you look at the README file on GitHub, it'll tell you. Pretty sure it'll tell you. If not, you could just ask me. Okay, cool. So with that, we also need to make sure that in our index.php file that we are indeed pulling that correct PHP file for our functions now. So this did say function new, and it now needs to be functions because that is the name of our PHP file that contains all of our functions, and we need those inside of this index file. So save that. Make sure you save your functions.php just for funsies to make sure everything's cool. Okay. Next item, third item of house cleaning is in the login.php file. I reworked the form action. So before the form action was just login.php. I want to make this transportable, basically. So we can, if we want to, we can functionalize this and have it pull in a login form on any page that we're on without having to actually go to a whole new PHP file. We may or may not do that, but in anticipation of that, I want to go ahead and change that right now. So you'll notice that we have a variable assignment up here that's being assigned to the server array variable called server. And inside of that associative array is this PHP self name, which has a value equal to whatever page the PHP processor happens to be working on. So whenever we load login.php, it's going to save login.php to this value, and we can access it by pulling it up and then echo that out. So the form action will still be login.php for this page. But if I move this code to another page, or it's in a function that's on another page, it will be a whole different value inside of here. It will be whatever that page is that the PHP processor is working on. So that means this code can be transportable. We can move it to another page, and we're not stuck with changing the name each time to match this manual page. We always want to be dynamic as possible. So this allows us to be dynamic. So the next change here is adding this line. And then in the form action, we're getting rid of login.php and adding this little snippet in right here. So we're echoing out the this page variable, which is being set by calling up the server array, which the server array value that we're looking for is what's under PHP self. Okay, coolio. Awesome. Be sure and save your file there. So right now, our page looks pretty boring, right? Nothing's happening style-wise because we don't have CSS on this. Now, some of you may have added CSS to it, which is super awesome. So you might just want to watch. Maybe I might have done something a little bit differently. You guys are all extremely brilliant, so I wouldn't be surprised if Old Man Cooksey is going to do something old-fashioned. Or it might surprise you. You never know. Right now I'm trying to find my power because my battery is dying. I'm not impressed with the battery life on this laptop. I'll tell you what. Okay, so first step to adding CSS is creating a CSS file. I called mine main.css. You can create it by making a new file in your text editor, or you can do touch main.css. If you want to call your CSS file something else, that's totally fine. I recommend using main, not because it's like how all the programmers do it. It's because that's how I'm doing it. And so the references that I make to main.css might make a little more sense and help you maintain the context of what we're doing in the future. So with that, then in our index.php file, in the head section of the HTML, we need to make sure we pull in that main.css file with a link. So create the main.css file, and then index.php, you're going to add this line right here in the head. Okay, be sure and save both files. All right, now number one, first part of the challenge was to change the colors. We're gonna do it differently. We're gonna start by changing the font family of the header 1, header 2, header 3 paragraph, and also the anchor tag, just for fun. That wasn't part of the challenge, but I want to do that. So H1, H2, H3, P, A, boop, boop, and font family, and it's going to be sans serif. Cool. Save that and reload, and our fonts should look a little more legible. Sorry, typefaces. Font is not actually correct. It should be typeface, but thanks to Microsoft, they call it font. Now, if you're ever having an issue with your CSS, sometimes your code editor will tell you there's an error. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it misses errors, or sometimes it thinks something is wrong that isn't wrong. It's difficult to diagnose. One thing I do to make sure that my CSS file is actually being pulled in is I use the universal selector of star, and I just set the color of everything to like red, and that way that will always work. And so that way I know, at least if something turns red, then I know my CSS is actually pulling in. Because sometimes when you're fighting against Bootstrap or some other library, it wants to like take over stuff. So it could be frustrating figuring that out. Anyway, it's a little tip there. Okay, so moving on. So we changed our font family. Let's go ahead and update our list. So my navigation that I've created in my make nav, it's using list items and an unordered list. And so an unordered list means there's no numbers, but it still is going to give you these dots right here. So I am fairly positive everyone knows about this, but just in case, the unordered list, the list style type, we can set to none. Nope. Okay, so what that does is gets rid of all the little dots there. All right, and we are going to make this take up as little room as possible, or at least not as little room as possible, but be a little more, I don't know, purposeful about the spacing that our navigation is taking up. So we're going to set our margin and padding to 0. Cool. And just in case. We're going to set overflow to hidden. So if anything flows over the edge, we're just going to hide it. And we'll set a background color of kind of a dark gray. Let's see what that looks like. Ooh, blue, dark blue on dark gray. That is, man, what a work of art, right? So usable. Hey everybody, look at how awesome my navigation looks. All right, let's fix that. So our list item, there's a couple ways we're going to slice this. We're going to try first with float left. Okay. Now, if you were doing SCSS, you could start indenting here for the anchor tag that was part of the list item. We're going to set the display of that anchor tag to block. The text color is going to be white. No, let's not do that. So FFF. And text align. Let's put it in the center. Now we're going to add a little padding. So we broke the padding back. And now we're going to add a little inside of our actual anchors. So 14 pixels and 16 pixels. So that means that the top and bottom padding is going to be 14 pixels and left and right padding is going to be 16 pixels. Cool. And then just like we have the list style type none for our unordered list, our anchor has underlines by default because they are anchor tags. So we are going to do a text decoration of none, so we don't have that grody underline. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, fancy. Look at that. Oh, sweet. Oh man, I wish I could pause this video. There is no pause. There's only stop and record. Okay, sweet. So let's add a little hover action here. So we'll use a pseudo class, not ghover, that's not a thing. Should be a thing though. Yo dog, did you use my ghover? Just forget I said that. No, it was terrible. So we're gonna change the background color. Oopsie. To an even darker gray, even more charcoaly charcoal. Cool. Awesome. Okay, and now let's do a little bit of, so our index.php file is broken up in a section here. Let's add some padding to that, shall we? Just to kind of get it away from the edge of the page. So we'll just say section. I should give this a class, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it a padding of 0 and 30 X. So top and bottom is 0, left and right is 30. Save that, refresh it. There we go. Give a little margin. And if we bring this in here, mobile friendly. Not really. Okay. So back over in our index.php file, we're going to now work on the changing of the navigation in the background of the changing the background's navigation color based on the logged in status. Okay, so number one, we're in the make nav here. I want to Let's see. Do we want to do that right now? No, let's wait on that. Let's just change the background color first. Okay, so over in our functions, in our make nav, so just before the unordered list here, we're going to add a class that is going to be aware of the login status. So this function is receiving the logged in status as part of the parameter capture. So we're going to know if they're logged in or not. So we can just check if they're logged in, and if they are, then we can swap out classes. Now, when I say swap out classes, I don't mean like the JavaScript swap out where you work the DOM to assign a different class. We're actually at page load time going to interject our different classes based on the logged in status. So we're going to see if they are logged in. If logged in equals logged in, then we're going to set logged in class is going to be class equals. Do you want to say no? Let's do this. We're going to say logged in. Cool. Else logged in class is going to be not logged in. Cool. So now in our unordered list here, we're going to add in class equals, and we'll put that in a single quote and close the single quote there, and we'll echo out the logged in class variable. Be right there. Okay, sweet. And then in our main.css, we're going to need to we're going to need to add those classes. Background color, I believe it was BF3F7F. I totally did not make that number up. Paste. And then not logged in. Background color is going to be 7FBF3F. Let's see if that works. It does not. Does not. Why does it not? Do we not? Class equals logged in class. Alright. Ooh, got a weird double quote there. How'd that happen? Oh, because I did it right there. So, there we go. And when we log out, it goes to green. Sweet. Very cool. Okay, so that works. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is I would like to add an active class to whatever page I'm on. So back in index.php, what I want to do is I want to when I create the make nav, I want to send along this page name. Cool. And then in functions, I'm going to receive this page name. Awesome. And then to my list item here, I'm going to add a class equals active. Awesome. And inside of my while here, I'm going to check if this page name, which is what we... Sorry for that glitch there. My finger hit the taskbar to stop. It's in a very unfortunate location, right where my pinky finger rests. Anyway, so this page name equals, and then we're going to look at page name that's being retrieved from the database. So up here, oops, there's extra space here. We're making a select statement, and we're saying pull the page name and the page title from the navigation table and query based on this SQL, and query this connection. So it's going to grab our local database and use our pre-built or presets that we set over in our connect.php. So server name, username, and password. That all becomes part of this connect object. And so in functions.php, we're saying do a query based on that connection, and query based on this SQL select statement. We can call this variable Bob if you wanted to, and Bob over here. We call it SQL because it makes sense. And it's English. We know what this is now because we've called it SQL or SQL. And so when it runs that query based on that object, the connection object, it sets the result into this result variable. And then down here, this while statement runs through the result, fetching each row at a time as an associative array. And so there's only one result, basically, usually, for each navigation element, right? We're not going to have two home pages or two about pages. But if we did, this condition would be true each time that was true. So if the page name from the result equaled the page name that we had sent along when we called the makeNav function from index.php, if those two align with each other, then what we want to do is we want to set this active variable that's going to contain the class name. We're going to set it equal to, let's call it active. Okay. Else. I'll say active. active is equal to nothing. There we go. Cool. So all we need now is, in our main.css file, is a class called active. Oops. Please don't hit that button and stop the video again. And so for the background color, that will make it, let's do this, for CAF Seto. There we go. And so if all goes according to plan, oops, trying to find, oh, this page name on line 35. What have I done? What have you done? Index.php, yep. I'm sure you guys all saw that before I did. You're probably yelling at the video. Cooksy. Okay. Let's try loading it again. Yay. So now the active page. Boop. And if you want, you can go into the CSS and change the hover color to match the active color, because it's kind of jarring to go from that charcoal black to the green only when your mouse leaves the spot there. Excuse me. So let's refresh this page, and now our hover will be that green. Or you can make it like a little bit darker green if you wanted to. Okay, and then we'll log in. Now our background is that. Sweet. And that is how we say Denskis. Is it though? Is it done? Sorry, that whirring sound in the background is the fan on my computer. Apparently, recording a video is a lot of work for it. So, poor guy. Let's give it a rest. All right, bye.